So in order to create the right mindset for what we will share with you today in the next 20 to 25 minutes, I want you to think about your next trip. So imagine you arrive to your hotel, you pull up your phone, open an app that will tell you your room number and that at the same time is your room key. That means you just go straight to your hotel room bypassing the check-in counter and the whole check-in process. This is actually how the W hotels are redefining the guest arrival journey with their check-in keyless app, showing us how companies are redesigning their customer experience through the lens of the customer journey. And of course, the W hotels are not the only ones doing this. Other companies are as well reimagining the customer journey. And something happened to me a month ago that made me really think of this. So I had a few family members come in to visit, but it happened that the day they arrived, I was out of the city for a client visit, and I wasn't going to come back until really late that night. So they would probably have to wait for me for 6 hours until I was able to pick them up and let them inside my flat. So thinking about this problem, I was talking to my friends to see how could I solve it. Could they maybe help me and pick them up? But that was impossible. So one of my friends suggested that I had to look into certain services that maybe there's somewhere in the city that offers certain lockers that my family could go and get the keys without me being there. So I started my search online, and I knew that there are, of course, locker services in train stations, but I came up on my search, I found this really cool company called Key Cafe. So what they do is that they have a few lockers in a lot of different local cafes where you can just leave your keys, and through their mobile app and a really cool and easy process, you can just grant access to whoever you want to get the keys. And that is exactly what I did. So I, of course, went through the whole process, gave them the code, they were able to retrieve the keys, and then they were able to get into my flat without me needing to be there. And this process, or this situation that was going to be quite stressful, was mitigated by this really easy process. And this is just me at a one-time customers needing this service. But after finding this company, I got really interested on the whole process and how they thought about it, and realized that this is being used a lot by Airbnb guests and hosts alike, and even state agents and brokers, making the whole handover key process much easier when the situation needs it. So these companies are identifying steps of the journey that can be redesigned or even eliminated for a better customer experience. And by taking a holistic journey view, experience is evaluated above and beyond individual touchpoints, revealing certain underlying expectations. And this means that companies should really go beyond what we think of now traditional metrics to really understand customer experience within the context of the whole customer journey.
Okay, so the last example that Patricia gave was really about how you make decisions in your path to purchase nowadays. Because back in the day, you kind of had a couple of brands or services that you were aware of, then a certain subset of those you considered, and then in the end you prefer one and you purchase whatever you need from that brand. And it was really a funnel. But I'm not sure if it ever really worked that way, but specifically now in the digital age, we see that the customer journey isn't really a funnel anymore. You start with an idea of a couple of things or brands that exist, and then maybe you talk to friends and family, then you look online, maybe check some specific websites, you see commercials, and at the end you might even have a preference for a brand that you weren't even aware of in your awareness phase. So having a lot more information nowadays and having very complicated journeys that are different for all different people makes it makes for very complex journeys that are difficult for brands to really get their eye on. So the way we started to look at the customer journey is this framework that was developed by McKinsey, and it isn't about specific touch points, but it's more about different stages and how these relate to each other. So as Patricia said, you got to look at the journey in a more holistic way. So don't look at individual touch points, but look at the grand scheme of things. But then you have to make meaningful stages to kind of see where the differences are and where you can kind of optimize or make big changes even. So the first example that Patricia gave about the W hotels was, okay, you have booked at a hotel and then the experience starts, and that is so stage 4 until stage 6, because if you're really happy with how the experience went, like not even having to go through to the check-in, but just getting everything you need on app and being able to just walk to your room, that might be so good that you're actually going to advocate and bond for a certain brand. Well, a big part of the journey is also not really considering buying anything and then going into a consideration phase, an evaluation phase, and then eventually a buying phase where you get to that experience stage. So what we're going to talk about today is a couple of learnings that we got from a number of studies that we did using our decision journey modeling methodology. Just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about is first an example that we have from the telecom industry, where we're going to show that looking at your journey in these stages instead of specific touch points can help you a lot in optimizing the customer journey or the customer experience. Then the second example is from the CPG industry, where the point is that we're going to talk about how it's not just an online or an offline journey, but you have to take a bit of a bigger perspective and look at it in an omni-channel perspective, and that the role that retailer websites are playing are changing quite quickly and dramatically. And then the third example is that you can even look at it from a bigger scope, a bigger perspective, that you just don't only look at what's happening within your industry or within your own journey, but that you can even learn from what's happening in other industries, and that you even have to do that because people's expectations are shaped by not just what they're doing in your industry, but with all their day-to-day interactions with other companies. So the first example, as I said, is going to be from a study we did in the telecom industry, where for a brand we looked at the path to purchase. And as I've shown before, the phases that are in the path to purchase are the latent phase, the consideration and evaluation phase, and then in the end the buying phase. So at the bottom you see a number of statements that kind of give a feel for how well a brand is performing. But it's mainly what I want to show here is about the development within those stages. So what you see is that in the latent stage, brand B is really outperforming the other brands that we measured. And this is usually the kind of brand that has the biggest name and the biggest market share, that is kind of top of mind before people really get into what they need and what they want. Then moving from the latent phase to the consideration phase into the buying phase, so when people have gone through their entire journey, so visited a number of touch points, did research, talked to people, got more of a feel of what they want and like and need, then we actually see that brand A is outperforming the rest and brand B starts performing quite averagely. So what that means is that brand A is doing something very well within that journey to make sure that people think, oh, well, this is actually the brand that gives me what I need or gives me the right information. So if you were to look at it just like how well are we performing in the path to purchase, you would get a bit of an average of everything and you wouldn't see quite the clear picture that we have now, where we see that a certain brand can become less or more relevant moving into the purchase phase, which is obviously one of the most important phases. So then we were kind of curious, like, what is going on? How is it possible that one brand is becoming so much more important and relevant throughout those stages. So what we did is we used some modeling techniques, for example, structural equation modeling, where we kind of did a driver analysis to show us what was really going on. And I want to mainly look at what's going on in the perception phase, or the perception quadrant. Because what we see there is that in the latent phase, network and value perception are really important for driving the brand perception. And moving into the later phases, and especially into the buying phase, where everything gets more specific and more real, we see that the network perception isn't really important anymore, and suddenly plan and data are now the most important drivers for the brand perception. So what this shows is that through those different stages, different things become important. And you need to get a feel for where in those stages people find certain pieces of information and certain touch points, because that influences what they need at that moment and how you can have the maximum impact on their decision and on their consideration. So this example is really about showing you that you need to look at the decision journey in a holistic way, but still make meaningful stages to understand what's going on.
Great, thank you, Wessel. Now, if we look at the consumer product good examples or CPG journey, we will see, I will explain in the next few minutes, how being present only online or being present only offline, that is in the physical store or even physical ads, is no longer the right way to go. We need to see the whole journey as omni-channel. So with an omni-channel journey, customers sometimes shop online and sometimes they shop in the actual physical store. However, online channels have a significant influence over those purchases that are completed or done at the physical store. Our research conducted in the US shows that more often than not, consumers who purchase in a physical store start their journey with a digital touchpoint. And additionally, we see that for those who purchase online, or that they finish their purchase path at a physical store, they also have different behaviors when it comes to their different touch points that they do. For example, specifically here, we see that those who completed their purchase at a physical store, that is the dark blue series, actually went as their first step to coupon websites to really kind of look for what promotions were there and to understand what all they, or where they could save money. But after that, they took their path offline to complete it at the store. And if we look into the light blue series, that is those who ended their purchase online, and this specific project was about the beauty product category, we see that a lot of those who purchase online went directly to the store website, and that can be not only to do the final purchase, but to also look for information or even compare certain products or see other information that could help them come to their final decision. So this means that brands really must think omni-channel when reaching to customers, because the consideration and latent stages can really happen almost interchangeably and in many different channels. And this brings us to our next learning from this project, this study that we did, that the role of retail.com is also changing. So from this research, we see that in the US, Amazon is where consumers often first look for product information, and they also go there to see either reviews, ratings, also to do a lot of price comparisons and to understand what whole range of products are there. So there might be different scents, different flavors that they're looking for, and this is kind of the first touch point that they look into to understand what they're looking for. So very often, consumers bypass even search engines such as Google and go straight to these retailer websites for information beyond transactions. So what we mean here is that they don't necessarily complete their purchase here, but that they go specifically to these websites to kind of understand what they would consider and even to narrow their consideration set. So because as well this journey, this CPG and then the consumer product goods journey is a very short purchase journey, oftentimes being less than 4 steps, winning at these retailer websites is becoming a priority for brands. So it is important to be present in these websites in order to create engagement and to increase loyalty in these consideration stages. So as we've said, it is important to not only know what stages consumers are in and what they need, but also to be present in all of the channels because they are used interchangeably and they have a lot of weight when it comes to the final decision. So when we come, now we're going to move on to our business-to-business journey. So here, and I will explain a bit more in detail in the next few minutes, but we see that we have a bit of a different story, and that here we've seen that by broadening the perspective of the journey, it actually brings a lot of that competitive advantage that will help to get brands on top. So we see that routine purchases tend to be an autopilot process, and decision makers might not engage as much in the category. So there's actually low involvement, and therefore there's less opportunities for brands to influence these decision makers. For example, just an example from our study, we have a decision maker that purchases gloves every 3 months for their facility. And they are very used to, they know what they want and they're happy with what they have at the moment. And what they're used to now is that every 3 months they will have an automated reordering system that is hassle-free, that is a hassle-free process. However, when a disruptor happens, that is a change in regulation, for example, a certain country leaves a huge community of countries, so there's a change of policies, or even there's new promotions or a budget cut, then is when the decision makers start actively seeking for new solutions or brands that will cater to their needs. So they go into what we call a research stage. So that's where they're starting to look for, okay, what do I need? What is there to offer that can really fulfill all the needs that my company has? And these disruption moments, of course, are the best opportunities for brands to make contact or even re-engage with consumers and create loyalty. So then they complete their research process and they make their new decision and they go back into that autopilot in purchase until another disruptor happens. So it is important to be there and to be present and to really know what the needs are. And that brings us to another really interesting learning from this specific research we did, that B2B decision makers are actually increasingly being influenced by experiences that they have in their daily life. So companies like Amazon, Uber, Starbucks, and even Airbnb are raising the bar for what we think of customer experience. And this is regardless of industry. And this learning can also be, of course, applied to end consumers. I know I am always looking for the best customer experience I can have, the easiest process, and the fastest solutions there are. But going back to our example, for example, if we have Starbucks that now offers this really cool service where you can order online, you just order your drink, you pay online, and by the time you get to the store, your drink is ready. So you don't have to queue or to wait for anything, and you can just go on with your day. So B2B decision makers are seeing these examples as something that they would like to bring to their industry as well, and they say, okay, why can I not have the same service that I get in my everyday life with this? So this means that B2B companies have also to adapt not only to their journey but to the outside journey. And going back to our research example, we also find that particularly for small and medium businesses, Amazon as a retailer is also becoming a preferred purchase channel, in some cases. Of course, these are examples where the employee base might be not so big, and then it is easier to change suppliers to Amazon. But this means that B2B companies are no longer competing with what is thought of traditional contenders. So it is important to start benchmarking customer expectations against upcoming disruptors from even outside the industry. So as Wessel says, it's important to see each stage and see the needs. And it's also important to understand all the different channels that customers go through and to understand that part of the journey. But here we see that not only have to see inside your journey and understand those needs, but also look outside and really understand what's going on to really cater to that customer experience expectation.
Okay, so a short recap of what we tried to explain today is that it's really important what perspective you take when looking at your customer journey. Because if you only look at how well you perform at certain touch points, then you're not going to get the maximum benefit out of mapping out your customer journey. So the first broadening it in perspective is that you can look at the entire journey as a whole and then divide it in meaningful stages for your specific industry. And in telecom we saw that in the path to purchase, if you only divide it in 3 stages, you'll already see a lot of differences in what people's needs and drivers are. And so that has a lot of consequences for how you're going to communicate and how you're going to be present at different touch points. Then the second broadening of perspective is that even if you're only selling offline or mostly offline, that doesn't mean that people will only look offline for you, but there's always an omni-channel journey. People will always look online for information and offline for confirmation with friends or with other ways to interact with the world. So you have to be aware that the world is bigger than just the specific small things that you can easily change and that you're aware of at that point. And we see specifically that the role of retailer websites such as Amazon is changing quite quickly here, and they're becoming a lot more important. Then the final way to broaden your perspective is to not only look at your own industry and your own journey and how your own customers are going through that journey, but also think about how the world is changing and how perception of all people are changing based on their interactions with a lot of brands that have customer experience and the customer journey really as their core values of how to run a business. And that is something that you can learn a lot of to stay ahead of your competition, and it's something you have to learn a lot about in order to stay ahead of oncoming disruptors. So that's what we wanted to tell you, and thank you all very much for listening.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. We have just a few minutes left, so I'm just going to let people put in their questions if they have any. I do have one in here already. This question says, I work within the healthcare industry. What is something, or how can I apply this in my own work?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, so it's a very good question as well, because of course we're focusing specifically here on telecom, consumer, and B2B, but if we also have a very great dedicated team to healthcare, and we've done certain research on what it is, the patient journey mapping. So all the concepts introduced here, of course, can be translated into the healthcare industry to really understand the needs of these patients and actually what points do they go through when it comes to decision making and understanding who they ask. Of course, they will go to their physician, but of course the whole part of online researching is very important. And so all the concepts here can be very well translated to the patient journey and if you want, we will share with you all of our learnings from these specific projects we've done with Patient Journey, but in general, all of the concepts and the framework can be definitely translated into that industry.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, if you're interested in hearing more about that project, we have some info on our website, but just go ahead and reach out to myself or Wessel or Patricia, and we'd be happy to share more with you about that. Since we're getting close to our 30-minute mark, I'm just going to go ahead and close things up. I do see another question or two coming in, so I will send those directly to Wessel and Patty so they have a chance to answer those more in depth. I want to thank you all once again for coming, for joining us for this webinar today. I'm going to be sending around the slides and a recording of today's session to you, so if there's someone you want to share it with, please feel free to do so. And you can also visit skimgroup.com/webinars to sign up for updates on our monthly webinars. We'll be going on a break for July and August, but we'll be back in the fall with some new topics. So if you sign up there, you'll be the first to hear about when we have new things to share. And also feel free to go to the link on the slide right now, skimgroup.com/decision journey mapping, or just go to skimgroup.com and click on the expertise drop down. There we also have a nice video which quickly shares more about decision journey mapping, and you can also share that and have a look. It's really nice in case you haven't seen that yet. So on behalf of Patricia, Wessel, and myself, I thank you once again, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a great rest of your day.